Hey guys, and welcome to another Level Up Talk with Wilson. Thank you, Solomon, for hopping on board. Appreciate your wonderful face that hops in, gets excited, even if it is a digital one. But we love digital faces too. So, yeah, things have been busy. You know, summer, it's kind of weird, it's kind of funky. I appreciate the clap at the right. You know, that's what I feel, Nuggets. I love it when there's like an applause and stuff like that. Or are you talking about me like, hey, like I don't know. It's been a reaction of mine since like back in the days of yore. No, dude, I am excited for what we're gonna be throwing down today. This has been one that I'm actually shocked that I hadn't even jumped on before. I think I may have brought this up in passing on past level up talks with Wilson. But I'm not too sure. And you may be wondering, what the heck is with, I always do a clap when I start. Dude, right? Like, for some reason, it feels like you should. I don't know. Maybe it's the environment of the office that's just like, yo, gotta do it. But, no, just amped about this talk. You may be noticing, yo, like, this is a lot of, like, paint and stuff. So I got a rep. This is Master Pete Sarskamp that's headed up, or was headed up, by our very own Ricky Ann McNaught, who is the director of our performing arts program here at QIU. It's awesome. It's great. I get to volunteer and participate. Don't mind a little bit of warminess, sweatiness, grossness. It's warm-ish in the office, and I know what Tom would say. Tom would be like, put on the fan. Well, the fan makes me frigid cold, so I need to find a happy medium. I don't know. Maybe it's because my feet are then exposed. I just need to get hit up top. Cool at the top, and I don't know. Now you're getting into too much detail of how warm I get. But honestly, no. It's just great being able to rep another awesome group. What I loved being able to do for the Masterpiece Arts Camp was I was the dude who was doing the Bible talk, like just kind of like what we do, but like they do it on like different themes depending on what the theme of the camp that year is. So this past one was like a time warp zone, and so I felt like very Doctor Who kind of vibe, kind of mad scientist, but also. If you guys ever watched the Bible Project, I kind of felt like a little bit like Dr. Tim Mackey, who just like talks all about there's these hyperlinks, guys. There's these things that you should be looking for, and like hopping around the storyline that is in the Bible, and the cool things that you can see that you can be like, oh, like it adds so much more texture to what you're reading. So that's kind of where I'm at on that level of like diving into things, because I love it when we are reading through the Bible and there's these things that point to other things, and like you just see this giant intricate web of so much detail and things that clearly point to other things, and then you just kind of go, man, how did I not read that before? And it's like, this is why it's meditation literature. This is what actually we were talking about in our nerdy Bible study last night, is the idea of like, what is meditation literature? It's the very idea that each time you come to it, there's something new you're pulling out on, and it's just like this. I've had it compared to like a hard candy, a hard candy, where sometimes you can take the Bible and you crunch it and you just get like that burst of flavor and that's all you do. But really, the best way to really thoroughly enjoy it, and I would tend to agree on this too, is when you are able to suck on that candy. Like, you get all the flavors, you get the wave of it over a period of time, you get to enjoy it a little bit more, and it comes in different waves and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I'm throwing at you. The Bible's like a giant hard candy. You just need to sit on it and let it absorb into your taste buds and stuff like that. Now I sound like a weird old dude. You're welcome, internet. No, today's talk. Oh man, like today's talk. I'm super amped. I'm so amped. I forgot my bag with my notes. Yeah, Wilson takes notes. Thank you, Nuggets, for the encouragement. Thank you, everyone, laughing at my old man voice. Maybe I should take up voice acting. I've said that like on and off at different points. Maybe I just need to do it. I just need to commit to something. So if you guys know someone who needs a voice acting gig of an old man who needs to be able to step up and help them youngins, that's something. Again, sorry. You have to put up with my craziness. No, like this is an awesome anime, and if you're even not a fan of anime, because there are people that are like, yo, dude, I don't do that anime thing. I get it. Like, it's not everyone's flavor. There are some things in nerdom that that I'm just not a huge fan of either. Like, to this day, I still have a hard time with Attack on Titan, just simply because it's so hopeless. I can't watch something that just makes you go, well, I died a lot watching this, and yeah. So I can't do it. Same with Walking Dead. I can't watch Walking Dead. The first episode hooked me. Second episode lost me. And it just happened. And I still remember to this day in college, one of my dudes that I used to mentor when he was in junior high was invested. Yo, why is Seth calling me? Seth knows I'm on stream. What is going on here? Anywho, so you gotta tell Tom to stop calling me. Anywho, what happened was then at that point, I was watching this. We were both gonna be like, "Yo, zombie movie." This was like, or zombie show. I was gonna get in on it. We were both amped, and then the second episode hit, and I'm just like, oh, "Yeah, dude, I can't do this anymore," and like literally walked out from my own room. Okay, like we were watching this in my space on dorm. And I was like, "Yep, dude, I'm gone." And he's like, "What are you doing? Like, this is the start of the second episode. You love the first episode. Commit." And it's like, nope. It was all because his wife cheated on him with his partner, even though, like, he was dead. But it's like, no, that's not commitment. That's not marriage. And, like, actually made me so ticked off. Like, I couldn't watch it. So, if you want to cheese off Wilson, this is the way you apparently do it. Is you just put down this stuff and just make him cry a lot. Please don't do it. Anywho, so this is an awesome movie. I highly recommend you guys checking it out. Especially getting into nerd stuff. It's really good. And I'll throw it over here because now you get to see. It's this awesome movie called The Boy and the Beast. Oh my goodness, guys. Like, it is worth buying online. It is worth, like, Apple TV to get, like, or on your Apple TV, or you can download. I think you can even find it here on YouTube. Yo, who is chatting with me? That's actually amazing. Oh my goodness. That's actually, sorry. Tom is like throwing pictures at me and stuff like that. It's way too cool. Okay. So anywho, this movie is so beautiful, so simple, and it was actually one of my former students that got me to watch this. And the preface that he threw down, okay, was like, yo, like, Wilson, we need to watch The Boy and the Beast. One, it's an amazing anime. Two, you're gonna cry. And I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna cry. And he's like, no, man, this is gonna make you cry, and it might make you even ugly cry a little bit. And I'm like, seriously, like, ugly cry? I don't know. Like, this dude was like one of our crew. He's still one of the dudes I try and keep up with. Anywho, so we watched it over a March break. I had him over. That was the first ever ramen night that I did with this dude, because we were like, yo, we're watching an anime, we gotta have ramen. And so we did that. And we watched The Boy and the Beast, and yeah, I cried. I'm gonna let you know, guys. I totally cried. It is a fantastic movie. I even showed it to Tom and to Noir. If you know Noir from our Discord crew, she's awesome. They came over to our place and they watched it. And again, tears were coming up. It wasn't ugly cry, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is still so good. I've tried to watch this with my kids. I don't remember if I did end up watching it with them. I don't know if I did. Oh, sweet Murphy, did I not? I don't think I did. Anyway, we need to watch it with our kids because it's got so many good teaching moments. It's a great story about mentorship. It's a great story about development. And today, particularly, we're not talking about mentorship because we've talked about that in the past. Not that we can't ever bring it up again, but like different motifs, different styles. Love this. The thing that I want to feature here about The Boy and the Beast is actually about anger. And we're going to be actually looking at two people and their responses of anger or anger welled up or pain or hate that's going on in their inside of them. And yeah, we're going to dissect it a bit. So I'm going to warn you, if you haven't seen the movie, there's a bit of spoilers. But I'm not going to tell you absolutely everything because, again, this anime, you have to watch it. It's so good. Okay. So the first character that you really need to know is Kyota. So Kyota is this scrawny little dude who grows up to be a wicked, awesome, hardcore dude who kicks butt and stuff like that. This actually is the best. I'm sorry. I laugh every time I see this part or this scene because it's like legitimately just, to me, it really epitomizes the Bible passage in Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Like, but it takes a lot of grit and grind to sharpen, so that means you gotta like rub off in not great ways or comfortable ways. And yeah, this is actually very well. I love this part, and again, it makes you want to cry. It's just so good. It's a fantastic story. You gotta watch it. If you don't watch it, I'm sorry. You're missing out on a good time. Anywho, wow, my wrist is going funky. So, Kyota, really summarized, is a kid that's abandoned. So, like, legitimately, he is on his own. He has nobody. His mom just died. His dad is absentee. Is, like, not there whatsoever, right? And what happens is he runs away because no one seems to be willing to take him in, or like those who are willing to take him in, he's like, I don't know them. Like, why would I go with them? Like, I want my parents. I want my dad. And it's like, well, your dad bailed on you, kid. So like, you gotta stick with this and just deal with it. And like, they kind of like, if you watch the movie, they're kind of like knobs on how they approach it too. Like, it's not even a good way on how they deal with crisis. Like, his family just, they're kind of idiots. Sad story. Yo, Hobbo the Gobbo, thanks for hopping on in and joining in. Yeah, so Kyota, actually at this point wasn't even called Kyota. I forget what his actual name was. Does it even show up? Ren. Sorry, his name was Ren. But later on, he meets this weird beast who just appears out of nowhere, and he's trying to run away from the cops, and he's just following this big beastly dude that's running around, and all of a sudden he ends up in like a weird part of Japan where now there's these beastly looking people who are just kind of like there. They're very different. Here, it's a better feature. Like, look at these peeps. They're like very different looking kind of beings. They're like half animal, half human, kind of stuff like that. And here, and he finds out that this guy's name is Kumatetsu. So Kumatetsu is this big, burly, bearish looking kind of dude who's like just absolutely nuts. And it's just absolutely crazy. He has an attitude problem. He's very ticked off most of the time. And no one wants to be his apprentice because he just seems to be really weird. And this is where then you have Kyota, who kind of comes in. He doesn't want any kind of father figure. He just wants to be safe. He needs someone to take care of him, even though, he doesn't want to be taken care of. He's very independent, and it's weird. So they're both like very similar, but of course they handle things where they clash hard, and that's what makes it a beautiful story where they end up working together. Komatetsu starts learning from Kyota, and Kyota starts learning from Komatetsu, to the point where they notice a change in each other in some ways. Kyota decides, you know what, man, like I've progressed to this point where I need to move past you. Like, I just can't be around you anymore, Komatetsu. You're too stupid. You're annoying. I'm gonna be with regular peeps. And he ends up going back to the world of the living, and he connects with this girl, and they become kind of friends. But like, there's still something that's not fully complete in him, and it's weird. Like, he's getting more complete and being able to stand in, but there's still some like rage issues that are going on. And during these rage issues, there's something that happens. There's this rage issue that's going on. Then, like, there's this like darkness that wells up when there's anger, when there's just violence that stirs up. And originally, I didn't tell this on purpose because I want you guys to work through this. Originally, when Kyota comes into this world, it was a big deal because there's no humans supposed to be there, right? Like, there's no humans allowed in this weird kind of mystical world of the like half beast, half human kind of vibe. And it was because humanity has a darkness in it that this group has somehow managed to be able to control. You'll notice like their swords are in the scabbards. So like part of their law is there is no actual swords released from their scabbard. You don't pull out the sword of the blade. Like, you don't pull out the blade of the sword. It's always when you're fighting or you're sparring that you are fighting with the scabbard still on. So you're never you're not trying to kill. You are just showing who's a better fighter, who will win, and you typically win by exhaustion and stuff like that. And this is where we get to introduce the other representative, this other person, who is Ichiro Hiko. Ichiro Hiko. Say that 50 times fast. Yeah, I said 50, not 5, because let's up the ante a little bit. So, Ichiro Hiko is the son of Komatetsu's rival. So, the rival that he is connected to is this guy. Why don't they give him a proper name? I guess like they're showing the boar or stuff like that. I believe it's Yozen is what his name is. But it's this boar-like looking dude. He's like really intense. And the thing that makes him kind of significant is that like he's what a good mentor looks like. He's able to show restraint. He's able to show strength under guidance. So he has like a massive group. And the big fight that's going on here is that they are fighting for who's going to be the next leader or who's the greatest mentor in the whole village or city that they are in, because their emperor is going to become a deity. So that's the whole contest between these two, right? And for a while, it was very clear that Yozen was like way better than Komatetsu because Komatetsu didn't have followers. Yozen had like tons of them and were willing to learn and stuff like that. But that shifted when Kyota became Komatetsu's apprentice, when it started open up avenues that Komatetsu could actually teach people. It was just a more intense version of learning how to be a good fighter, a good warrior. And Yozen actually started not having as many followers. But Yozen has these two kids. I forget what the one brother is, but here we have Ichiro Hiko. And the weird thing that you notice is that Ichiro Hiko always is covering his face. And you're kind of like, okay. And like as they grow and develop, you see in this one picture, like the brother starts developing tusks, right? Which makes sense. Like if it's half man, half beast, then they're gonna like get attributes of their parents, just like DNA. That just makes sense, right? And so like his dad's like a boar like humanoid, so he's gonna become a boar like humanoid. But in the picture, when they were little kids, like there's this weird boar thing that's on top of their head. And you're kind of like, okay. And the explanation was, well, you haven't grown into your tusks yet. Like you haven't developed that yet and stuff like that. And that's fine. You just kind of like shrug it off and like, oh, okay, so that's weird. Some of us more adeptly might notice that, well, no, there's something weird about this person. And at first, this kid's a punk toward Kyoto because, you know, he's a human. Oh, we should mistreat the human because he's weak, he's pathetic, he's nothing. And then Kyoto shows strength and is like, oh, shoot. And so then there's the respect thing. But then the relationship before with Ichiro Hiku was that Ichiro Hiku befriended Kyoto at first and was like, yo, like, bro, lay off him kind of vibe. But then when Kyoto starts getting accepted and invested, you see Ichiro Hiku actually become kind of a punk toward Kyoto. And just as like, you're beneath us. Like, your mentor, absolutely useless. Like, what's the point? Like, he just sucks. Our dad's the best. You just need to go back to the world of the humans and just get the flip out of here. And just seemed really angry. And as a watcher, you're like, what? What the heck just happened? Like, you were friends, like, 2 frames ago, and now you're, like, enemies all of a sudden. And the way this is signified is, like, for a moment, Kyoto notices there's a darkness on Ichiro Hiku, which you're just like, wait, what? And as they get older, that becomes more of a thing where Ichiro Hiku does not show his face anymore. Like, he tries to cover it more and more. Like, you see, like, it's kind of like, no, I'm not this thing. I'm, like, there's this shame because, really, he's starting to realize he's human. And, again, what's the danger of humans? Humans have this darkness that, when encouraged or developed in rage and anger, can be a problem. And that's exactly what you see happening with Ichiro Hiku, where he's been hurt in the process that he's different. He doesn't fit in entirely. He doesn't have his tusks yet. And he's asking this time and time again. I love the montage that they show it, is like at different stages, is like, Dad, why don't I have my tusk yet? Dad, why don't I have this yet? And the way Yozen responds to it is like, well, it's just how you're developing. It's who you are. It's growing. And he just kind of like shrugs it off as like, no, you are still part of the family. And that actually becomes a key question that Ichiro Hiku actually throws down, is like, am I even really part of your family? And Yozen responds in the typical dad fashion. And I say typical dad fashion in that, like, if my kid were to ask that, I'd be like, dude, of course you're our family. Like, of course. It's not just the DNA that makes us family. It's this bond that we've developed, this investment in one another, and the care that I'm willing to do anything that I can to give you the best opportunity to grow and develop and stuff like that, right? Like, that's what it should really be coming down to. It's not just blood, it's a decision, it's a commitment that you are choosing. And I've always appreciated that phrase, you know, family isn't what you're born into, it's the one that you choose. Like, that's true family. And I would tend to agree with that for the most part. There are people that, like, I've talked about, or I haven't talked about this, but, like, we have connections to us that are really friends or even previous students of ours who we address as, like, Uncle Hoff or Uncle Tom or, like, that kind of stuff like that. They become part of our family, and they are invested in our family, and it's not like, yo, like, this is the title because you invested. It's not like a subscription whatever of love or stuff like that. That's not the case either. But they've been around, they've been investing, they ask about our family, they continue to check in on us, and we continue to check in on them, making sure they're okay. That's family. That to me is real definition of what family is. It's a decision of commitment and involvement and investment. It's not just your DNA. Of course, I've got family that's DNA. Like, my parents are taking care of my kids, and I love them to pieces. Past them just helping with, like, taking care of my kids for a week, because, like, yeah, that's an awesome break that now I get to have, but it's also time that they get to spend with my son and my daughter. They are choosing to invest in that time. Like, my brother gets to hang out with them, which, oh my goodness, I, like, so amped that hearing what they're doing over this week has just been awesome, because they are choosing to take that family role seriously and not just go, oh, well, like, we're biology, so, like, I know you, we're invested because we share DNA. It's like, no, that's not family. And this, like, that's the struggle that we are seeing with Ichiro Hiko, is that there's a dissonance going on here. There's something that just isn't right. And his desire to be accepted is a visual thing, but also, like, something's wrong. And Dad keeps saying that I'm part of this family, but I'm clearly not. I'm clearly not his, because, like, physically I'm not able to demonstrate that. I keep wearing, and you notice it's a boar head of some kind, whether that was, like, stitched together or stuff like that, or remains of whatever. There's a covering of that that's trying to show, no, I'm part of this family. You don't get to see my tusks. It's just always covered and stuff like that. But it's a lie. And he's so frustrated. And the hard thing that he sees in this big competition that happens between Komatetsu and Yozen for finally deciding who's going to be emperor and take over the former emperor's role, Komatetsu wins. And everyone's blown away, and everyone's amped and cheering for Komatetsu. And here is Ichiro Hiku. He can't handle it that, you know, this other dude, this human, this lowlife from no space, or this, like, punk Komatetsu, who is very rough, very gruff, very undignified, kind of like random kind of dude. This guy is going to be emperor and beat his father. He just can't handle it. So he is so enraged that he thinks the way to show that his father is the best is he's just going to kill him. And it's the first time a sword's ever been unsheathed. And the weird thing is, Ichiro Hiku does it, like, telepathically. It's like this darkness creates this surge of power, but it's a negative space power that he then uses to run the sword through Komatetsu. And, like, pin drop, what the flip kind of vibe happens there, because it's just nuts. Like, I remember watching, I'm like, progress happened. Why did we lose it all of a sudden? Like, what the heck? Like, I was ready to yell at the freaking writer. And this is a 2015, like, film, so we're almost 10 years past when it was made. But, like, so good. Anywho, but then that's not enough for him. And Kyoto steps up to defend Komatetsu. And, like, it just creates more mayhem. And then you have the former emperor is just like, we gotta separate them. And all of a sudden, Ichiro Hiku just vanishes. And Kyoto doesn't know what he's gonna do. He doesn't know how to respond to this, because now this dude who was a mentor that rubbed off very roughly now is, like, so tight. He cares about him. He feels sorry that he even brought this on him, right? Like, that his very existence brought this danger on him. And so he goes back to the world of the living, and he's just deciding, oh, I'm gonna stay there. I'm gonna be there. That's because then all this junk, all this darkness, this vibe, stuff like that, Not going to be an issue anymore. It's just not going to be a thing because I'll be back in the land of the living. Well, Ichiro Hiko actually causes more crap. Surprise, surprise, right? You know, it's got to build up to an even bigger crescendo than what the flip just happened. And Ichiro Hiku has this weird capacity where he's able to put himself into like a dark shell, and he's teleporting and weird stuff, and has like turns into this giant whale because he saw like the book Moby Dick, which is like another connection. That's a deeper dive and stuff like that. And so he goes to fight Kyoto so that he can destroy the one that caused this giant rift that made him kind of be like, you had to expose it all. You had to show that like you could fight this thing. This is messed up. Oh my goodness, I'm going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Promise. Try not to. And so Kumatetsu actually becomes the emperor. And the emperor is able to do one thing to really kind of ascend to another level of like investment and involvement, and he wants to lend his aid to Kyoto because there's no way Kyoto is going to be able to fight this fight on his own. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be okay, I promise. But Komatetsu decides to reincarnate, and this is the thing, like he's able to transfer his essence into something. And so the thing that he transfers his essence into is Kyoto's sword, which was actually formerly his sword. And he gives it to him for this fight. And when Kyoto could have lost it, he could have just attacked in anger, which absolutely makes sense, right? Like the dude Ichiro Hiku practically murdered his mentor, or like really hardcore attempted to. Like if anyone's got the right to, and like he's causing mayhem in the world of the living, where you know he's got this girl that he's like invested in, has a relationship with, and like things are kind of panning out a bit more for Kyoto, and that's what Ichiro Hiku is like really peeved off, right? Like it just seems like Kyoto has found his mode, like his vibe on what he's supposed to be doing, but Ichiro Hiku still feels outcasted and doesn't feel like 100% right, even though he's been like loved and shown the best way to love somebody, right? Like it doesn't make sense. It's like a reversal of roles, and it's crazy. So that like there's multiple reasons for Kyoto to just like lose his shizzle, so to speak, and just like go nuts on Ichiro Hiku. But the wonderful thing is, Kyoto looks at it and goes, Ichiro Hiku, like, you are so... Don't let the darkness consume you. Don't let it pervade in you. Don't let it ruin and wreck and destroy you. Like, let go of the anger. Choose not to be angry. Choose to fight it back. And Ichiro Hiku is just like, no, man, it's good. And like he has crazy laughs. It's just very Joker vibe-esque. But then you have Komatetsu, who comes in the form of a blade, and master and apprentice, mentor mentee, in one decisive blow, take down Ichiro Hiku. Oh, and beautiful moment, because like they are going through the memories of training and stuff like that, and then Komatetsu doesn't actually really even reside in the sword anymore. When he wields the sword, it's like Komatetsu lives in Kyoto. And almost like, yeah, you gotta watch the film. It's so good. Like, legit, Solomon's got it. Like, Oh my Lana, this is a good one worth buying. I will vouch hard on this because it's just so good. But like legit Komatetsu is the one that is saying I'll fight alongside you. You will not be fighting alone. And so you see like Komatetsu is just like chilling in Kyoto. And that's because Kyoto chose to embrace Komatetsu instead of just allowing anger to just be infected in his life, and all that he's doing is just so good. The hallmark of a great film, if it makes you cry months or years after watch, 100%, Solomon, 100%. Like this, talking about this, I'm already getting like, hearts, feels, emotion, so good. But like that's the whole thing, is like, what are you filling your heart with? Because that's how it ends, is that Komatetsu essentially resides in Kyoto's heart. That yes, he's no longer a physical being, but he's like there, and he's guiding Kyoto alongside his path and all that he's doing. And that's what a good mentor does. That's what a good friend does. That's what the Holy Spirit does. We've talked about that, and like how he's always with us, speaking to us, guiding us, and directing us, right? And how when we follow Jesus, there's a seal of the Holy Spirit on us. And yeah, I've elaborated on this a ton. So this is like reminder steady on that one. Right. Thank you, Nuggets. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, like that's what we talked about on Wednesday too. And like the whole idea of the Holy Spirit is not like distant, but he's right there with us, and he's speaking to us and guiding us along what we are doing. Just like how Komatetsu is in this movie. And again, you got to watch it. So you may be like, okay, Wilson, you did like a ton of like elaborating on this movie. It's a fantastic thing. But like, what does this deal with the Bible, right? And like we've talked lightly on it. I gave some references toward what it's kind of like. And this is where I want to relate to, like, what do we do with anger? Because legitimately, that's the two issues that Kyoto and Ichirohiku had. Yeah, they had different vantage points on how they were hurt, right? Like, you had how Kyoto was hurt by family, by abandonment. Even his own rage at just life is sucky and, like, how do I ever get ahead kind of vibe. I have to work hard, earn hard, do all the hard things, but really it's by working hard, doing hard things to be able to connect to a mentor who's willing to do that and guide me on that process, and I take it in, and like it's a give and take. That really, his heart kind of got massaged and worked on, and of course, like the girlfriend that's in the movie also does that, right? Is like investing in, you're worth investing in. You are important for who you are. And like that's the thing that kind of blows his mind on it, is that there's this girl that notices, not just because he's a fairly ruggedly awesome looking dude, but like the factor that she notices and she is willing to invest. She pours into him in his mind as well, that he learns to read and stuff like that. It's so good, and holistically he's just been kind of invested and involved and developed. Versus Ichirohiku, he's been invested more on like, we've taken you in because Ichirohiku also was abandoned as an infant, but the difference is Yozen took him as a baby and just said, oh well, like you're gonna work through this, you're gonna develop and stuff like that, and it doesn't land. Like, it just doesn't land well. It's still, there's something wrong, and we're not willing to address. We're not willing to focus or work this on. We'll just cover it up until it just explodes. And really, you could see it kind of like the sword, right? Like this constant buildup of like, we're hitting this up, but like really slowly over time, it's the pulling out of the actual threat that's underneath. And it's beautiful. And scary. But that's what happens with Ichirohiku. It was just a climax of, no, this can't be right. Scum can't win. Because if that means they can win, then what hope do I have? Like, I just, you know, nobility, you know, like, just goodness and stuff like this is supposed to win, and that stuff like that. And sometimes it's a harsh reality, right? Like, it's just kind of reflecting and just be like, well, that's just not how it is. Like, your dad's still amazing. He just got defeated by just a pure fighter. That's what happened. And because this guy has hope now, of course he's going to be able to do it, versus before he didn't. And like, that's where you see kind of the comparison. So I want to bring over, we're going to drop this in. One of my favorite verses to throw down. Man, why does it always shrink down? This is weird. This is the verse that I want to really sit on here at the start. It's one of my favorite verses. I think I've said this before, that like, I love Proverbs. Proverbs is like one of my favorite landing spots. It's a lot of short phrases. So if you're willing to sit through short phrases and kind of like digest it over time, it's like having appetizers, right? A little bit of appetizers over time, but like, you can choose like your favorite appetizers and you can really fill up on those or enjoy certain flavors of it and stuff like that. And that's what Proverbs is. It's just a lot of flavorful kind of sayings, but they are helpful for you. They are in development of you. So this is one that always has stuck to me. Proverbs 16, verse 32. Better to be a patient man than powerful. Better to have self-control than to conquer a city. Very on the nose, right? Like, we're talking about two warriors, and like two warriors that are training their son warriors, and like, how do they respond to things and stuff like that. It's very on the nose. I get it. But an original translation that I had was better a patient man than a warrior, one who has self-control than one who conquers a wall, and stuff like that. Different translations like to mix in different vibes on words and stuff like that. But like, it's the truth. And like, even if you read something like Sun Tzu's Art of War, which again is a fun read, really gives actual military strategy, but one of the things is about, like, you don't just go into war hastily. In fact, it's better to win a battle without shedding blood. Very cool concept. Like, you win the war before there's even any war that starts, kind of mindset. That's the best kind of battle that you can win. And in a way, that's kind of what's being thrown down here, right? That's a prior context to that it's better to like have a cool down nature rather than just like attack things hardcore and just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to bully through, right? Like, I'm just going to heckin' yesin. And that was the thing. Kumatetsu, that was his thing. He just kind of went at things hardcore, didn't really process. He just kind of reacted. But through learning through Kyota and like learning to assess and take in things before just responding in anger or just like going at it and just be like, yeah, like kind of stuff like that. Really, he took that time to be able to just go, okay, like, I need to work on this. I need to develop. I need to learn on this well. And so like, that's what made him be able to win against Yozen as well. He was able to dial that down a bit, and he was able to learn from even his mentee, who, like, at the time of the battle, he didn't think his mentee was going to be back to see his fight. And so he kind of lost hope, and people weren't cheering for him. But here's Kyota, like, just friggin' going nuts, and just like, come on, Kumatetsu! Don't give up! And he hears that, and he's just like, oh, son, you are so screwed. Like, he doesn't like look at Yozen anymore and like, oh, I'm tired. He's like, oh, dude, second wind, you ready? And just like goes to town, and it's so good. You need to watch the movie. Like, I cannot vouch this hard enough, guys. Watch the movie. It's so good. But that's the thing. It's controlled versus Ichiro Hiku. He didn't see that. He saw that his dad's way of going about things was not cutting it. And so he took the opposite lesson of just like, well, instead of this self-control junk that I've been trying to hold in and deal with and mask and stuff like that, no, this didn't work. We're just going to do it. We can't let this punk loser who has been defeated, trounced so many times beforehand, come up when it matters and win. It just, no, it can't happen. I'm going to deal with it this way. And that's letting the darkness out. That's letting the stuff that will destroy you and others, which we've talked about at different points as sin, right? Like the whole idea, sin is really anything that gets in between you and God and you and other people. Well, that is like the darkness that can well up and brood and like just be absolutely nuts. Yo, Solomon, you threw down a quote. Anger is just anger. It isn't good. It isn't bad. It just is. What you do with it is what matters. It's like anything else. You can use it to build or to destroy. You just have to make the choice. By Jim Butcher. I would agree on that because there is justified anger. I think you need to watch, again, the motives of what that anger is and the follow-through of what's being done. It's a very important thing to assess, right? And this is where, like, you saw Jesus go hardcore in the temple, right? Like, he goes nuts. He makes a whip. He's throwing tables and stuff like that. Clearly, Jesus is not chill in that moment. But he's not chill for a reason. Because in that moment, he's seeing corruption happening in the very spot where there should be love and embrace, support, mercy, like opportunity for restoration, but there wasn't because it was all focused on greed. It was almost like, and I'm going to be talking about this actually on Sunday, it's almost like there's a new idol that showed up in the temple, and this idol was money. Simply put, because there was surcharges on surcharges for other things going on that would have been sold for sacrifices or forgiveness or for signs of purity and development and stuff like that. So like Jesus is like rightfully ticked, and he just is like, you have turned this house of prayer into a den of thieves. Like he's just livid. Same thing with like the woes, right? That Jesus throws down, because the woes are really just like, you done goofed so stupid hard. Like, how is that a thing? And so he's ticked. But like, there's righteous anger and then there's not righteous anger. But we're talking about typical response immediate that's not necessarily justified. This is like just and like being welled up and ticked and stuff like that. So don't be a Ichiro Hiku. Don't do it. Don't be Ichiro Hiku. Here's another one, and this is straight from Jesus himself, okay? So we're going to dissect this a bit, and yeah, that's going to be better. Don't mind me swapping the size of text. There we go. Sure. We'll do it that way. All right. So this is the fun part. So, and you may have heard this passage before. We're sitting in Matthew 5. I know that's our man Solomon's favorite style book of the Bible, or lots of wisdom gained, as we've been saying a little bit here. This is what I want to throw down, okay? Because like this is Jesus' call out on like, what do we do with this very thing called anger? And remember in context, right? This is his Sermon on the Mount. This is like essentially his dissertation paper on how do we live life? How do we demonstrate a good life for other people? How do we live in a way that's demonstrating the kingdom? Because, right, like there's kingdom literature, or sorry, not literature, language. There's challenge to, how do we spread this kind of notion? You kind of get like, I'd be willing to even go as far as saying like, this is almost kind of like another vibe of Mount Sinai, kind of stuff like that, because they're both like God speaking to the people from a mount. It's Jesus laying down some things to understand about what does it mean to live certain ways, how does it affect other people, but also how does it reflect your relationship with God. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of my thought. Y'all can throw down if I'm heretic or not, but I just see a lot of connections to that. But like, yeah, it's talking about the Beatitudes, the famous Beatitudes. Take time to read all of Matthew 5. Like legit, 5, even chapters 5 through 7, which is the whole Sermon of the Mount. It's kind of crazy. Recommend doing that. In fact, just read the whole Bible. Make it easier, because then you get even the bigger scope of all of it. Just throwing it out there. But the one that I want us to sit on is his teaching on anger. And this is something that we are working on here, on what is the anger that is needed to be worked on inside our hearts. But in the midst of it, like, there are key things that seem to be Ten Commandment vibes, like the whole idolatry, divorce, even what are vows, because that's between you and God, but then that's you and God and other people. What's the idea of revenge? So murder, or like, how do you love on people who have hurt you and stuff like that? So the idea of even forgiveness and stuff like that. It's very kind of like we're hitting all the levels of stuff like that. Matthew is full of amazing, insightful stuff, people. Absolutely, Solomon. All right. So again, Matthew 5 verses 21. We'll go to 26, and then we'll potentially dive into other spots. But, okay. You have heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. So that makes sense. Like, you took a life, now you must be judged for taking that life. That's actually a Genesis law that was thrown down. But I say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. Yo, like, heavy stuff, right? Like, who hasn't wanted to choose someone out? Who hasn't gone, dude, that was like such an idiot move? Or like, dude, you're so dumb, stuff like that. It's like, whoa, okay, let's watch how our intent is, right? And this could be spoken in a hyperbole, but it's all to a point, right? Jesus does this all to a point. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to God. Oh. When you are on your way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to an officer, and you will be thrown into prison. And if that happens, you surely won't be free again until you have paid the last penny. So Jesus here is talking about basis of relationship. It's not even just like the anger that's in it. It's like, what's the repercussions past this? And the first instance of repercussions, right, on how we're supposed to settle our anger or settle our differences, we can't go before God if there's something going on in our hearts towards somebody. And Paul actually talks about this in Corinthians, how if you've got an issue with somebody when you're about to take the Last Supper, kind of stuff like that, or communion, you need to be right with God, but you also need to be right with other people. So your relationship, whatever's inside you that's not resolved, guess who sees the innards of you, right? It's not just like, oh, look, Mike's digesting this kind of stuff like that. It's like, no. Excuse me. It's about what's welling up inside you. What's your intentions behind this? And it's almost as if when you go to present something and you still have anger, you still have resentment, you still have stuff that really needs to be worked out, it almost taints the very thing that you're going to use to present to God. And that's what I find is really intense about God, right? Like, intense about Jesus, Holy Spirit, God. Like, all three of them are looking at the motive, right? What's your thing behind it? Are you doing the sacrifice just because you need to? And you're like, yo, me and you, God, we're good, but like, I can't stand Hank from down the road. Like, he's just a punk. God would be like, yo, like, you need to work out with Hank. You need to do some work in here. You need to resolve that, because like, whatever tension you guys got, yo, I feel it, I see it, and it bothers me. And we need to work this out. We need to take this up. We need to do everything that we can to live at peace with one another. And that's from Peter, is that we're supposed to try and live at peace with all those around us. Doesn't mean like we're perfect at it. We're working on it, right? We're flawed. Thank goodness for the grace of Jesus. But as much as we can live at peace with those around us, that means sometimes I gotta step away and deal with what's going on between me and somebody else before I can take it to God. Especially if I'm going like, yo, God, like, I'm so amazing, or like stuff like that. It's like, no. Like, work this out, man. You and this person need to work this out. So take that time and do it. And again, he's now offering past the temple to like, or past the time with you and God to now others, how that can affect, right? Because if you got issues and you decide to go to court and you think, yo, I'm like, they're going to see my side. Jesus is like throwing some wisdom, like, yo, you might want to settle that before, because like, if it turns out that you are actually in the wrong, which you may be like too focused in your rage mode to realize you messed it up, just like, you know, this dude who kind of was like, oh, of course I'm going to kill him because that means my father's honor is going to be right and he's going to be emperor. Like, this just makes sense. Why would this be wrong? What's going on here is wrong. And he's just trying to do it. And other people are just like, no, dude, like, no, what are you doing? Like, this is stupid. And it ends up he dies, right? Like, it's not Kyoto that really dies. Like, even Kumatetsu doesn't fully die. He lives within Kyoto. So it's kind of like, do a double check. Because, like, you may have a penalty that's coming at you really hard, right? Like, so you'd be handed over to the judge, and the judge will hand you over to the officer, and then you'll be thrown into prison, right? Like, there's a process of, like, you went to the judge. Now there's corporal punishment, and part of that corporal punishment is you are removed from other people. You are stuck. And if that happens, you surely won't be free until you have paid the last penny. Like, it's rough, man. This is why, like, Jesus is, like, so heavy on forgiveness, right? Because it affects two people. It affects him, like, him as in God, and it affects the people around you. So, like, if you got anger, and, like, that's not an easy thing to, like, just give on, right? Like, there are things that you can be ticked about, but, like, what are you doing about it, and how are you going about it? In this case, that anger, you need to be dealing with it the right way, which is, yo, I need to figure out this dispute. And that's why also here we've talked about how do you properly have a dispute, right? How do we resolve things? We need to resolve it with other people well. We need to handle it well by bringing it up toward them and be like, yo, this is an issue I got. Like, we got to figure it out. And that, Jesus has a whole segment on that, actually within his, within the Sermon of the Mount, within those 3 chapters. Again, look it up. Check this stuff out. But it's all in the process of, like, how are we providing healing and reconciliation? And then, so of course there's, like, the laws of teaching about revenge and love for our enemies. And so we're going to just hit this really quickly, cover it, and then we'll close with the level up. Because you need to level up. So, again, Matthew 5, and we'll go from 38 all the way down to 48. You have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Makes sense. But I say, do not resist an evil person. Weird. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. This is a really kind of weird idea, right? Like the concept of, yo, like, God, no, like, I deserve what's mine and stuff like that. It's like, no, don't act in that way. Don't try and balance the scales yourself. That's what you're really seeing. It's almost like, instead of trying to be like, well, like, he took this much away from me and stuff like that, it's like, no, give him more. Like, go on the side of where blessing is giving, right? The whole idea of what Jesus does is it's a more investment in people around you, even to the point where it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you help somebody that's trying to hurt you? Because maybe it is going to create that change of, like, what the heck? Like, you're not... Like, of course, stand and say, yo, like, this isn't comfy, but, like, still share, invest, and love on people. And this is, again, where the follow-up here on 43 to 48. You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, And he sends rain on the just and unjust alike. If you love those who love you, that reward is there for that. Like what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. But you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And again, like this is in the concept of like, what are you pursuing? Are you pursuing to be more like God, or are you pursuing to be more like other people that are just like gonna try and backstab, or like, well, you didn't work with me, so like sucks to be you, kind of stuff like that. That's not what we see happening biblically. Biblically, you see, God is the one who brings justice. What we try and do is demonstrate what does it look like to follow God, or like how he shows love, how he shows grace, how he shows mercy, how he loves those who even don't love him, which is really intense, right? Loving enemies. He's like, this is how I do it. I love both the just and unjust. They are both they both need me. So I still love on both. But I'm also like, he's the perfect judge. He's the perfect one that sets that standard. And that's the hard thing for us to, take on, because we're like, God, like, I'm kind of getting hurt a lot. And the response is, keep loving. Trust that I got it covered. Lean on me. And he even is going on a reward. He appeals to you. He's like, so, like, you loving people that love you? Like, what reward is in that? Like, that's just common practice amongst other people. But the reward is that, God sees this. God is helping me. God's gonna, like, it's like I'm given control over my anger, my rage, my need for this is how things should be. I'm just going to trust that God's got the resolve here. God's got the whole thing figured out. I'm going to lean and try and show grace as much as possible. I'm going to try and show love as much as possible, as much as I can. And, like, continuing that opportunity. Because you never know what's going to happen. And it's not to be like, oh, well, your love is going to convert them. Like, don't. If you're going into that mindset, just don't do that. Like, love for love. Like, invest, care for people, even if it hurts. Sounds weird. Even if it hurts. But I think we need to learn forgiveness in some ways. There's some forgiveness that's going on. And that's, again, I'm throwing a lot of blanket statements. I'm throwing a lot of blanket, like, well, you need to love and you need to forgive no matter what, kind of stuff like that. It's a hard thing to process. And again, there's so many different things that we face as an issue and stuff like that, and the sense of justice. But what we are seeing in a glimpse here is that God's the one who's proper to handle justice, to properly handle anger. We tend to lean toward this guy, Ichiro Hiku. We tend to be like, no, this isn't right. This is how it's supposed to go. I'm going to set my way. I'm just going to figure it out. We need to work on that. And really, we need to be more like Kyoto, where we are learning to deal with that anger, to process it, but also to trust that there's a guiding in us that knows when that's supposed to be dealt with. And we need to be listening to that. We need to be listening to the Holy Spirit guiding us. That needs to be the voice that's more louder than that darkness that tries to envelop us, that can really ratify and damage the world around us. Because really, that's what I get, at least out of The Boy and the Beast, for one segment. There's so many teachable ideas off of this movie. You watch it, and I would love to hear your input on what other teachable ideas do you see. And then I would love to elaborate on that. I'd love to dive in together on that and stuff. But that's the one that really kind of stood out to me, is like when Kyoto was able to listen to somebody else and focus it in the right way to face what was wrong, man, that made the difference on how he fought against Ichiro Hiku. Because it wasn't darkness fighting darkness. It was then darkness that was taken out by amazing light that just dealt with the problem. So my level up challenge for you now, because about stinking time. Sorry. My level up challenge for you guys is, how are you fighting that darkness inside of you? That is anger, resentment, hurt. How is it going? Do you feel like you're enveloped in the darkness a lot? Are you hearing that voice, just reminder of, this is not the way I want things to be? I want control. I want justice. I want it this way and stuff like that. To the point where it's like, they're an idiot. Like, this is wrong. This is stupid. This is brutal. This sucks. I shouldn't have to deal with people like that. To the point where it might actually come out in a very physical way, right? But we just read from Jesus that all that stewing in the heart is even worthy of judgment. How you stir it into the heart. And that can, like, that's causing a rift between you and God. It's not just between you and that person. God feels it too. God sees it too. So how are you addressing that? And are you, especially if you're like following Jesus, right? Like if you claim to be following Jesus, how are you then listening to the Holy Spirit? How are you taking it in with God's voice? Crazed Menace says, I crack open my Bible to take in God's word, which helps tremendously. Absolutely. That's like having a komatetsu in this moment, where like the Bible is able to speak into that situation. It talks about how the Bible is a mirror that we look at and evaluate and go, oh man, like I need to work on this. Not that you're a lost cause, but it's like, no, we can do this. We can do this. Take it time, like bits at a time, working on this, constantly trying to be like Jesus, right? Jesus is that ultimate reflection of what we're supposed to be like. But how are we doing that? How are we walking through that in process? How are we able to be more like Kyoto, listening to Komatetsu and allowing him to constantly mentor us, to guide us, to fight against that darkness that's in us, so that we can be better reps of him? Because that's what Kyoto is. He's the mentee of Komatetsu. And so by doing that, he's actually demonstrating Komatetsu and what he's doing, which is beautiful too. But yeah, that's your level up. How are you working on how are you fighting back against that darkness? Do you got people that are coming alongside and investing in you or calling out that darkness? Are you reading the Bible? Are you taking those things to God and just going, yo, man, like I need to work this out. Like, help me on this. So that's your challenge. Hope it's an awesome time working it through, processing stuff like that. I'm going to pray. So anyone on stream chat, if you got a prayer request, now is the time where you can throw it down and we can pray here on stream for it. Same thing with anyone on Discord that may be watching or stuff like that. We can be praying through that too. We got you back and in prayer. Remember, we're talking about how important it is to be connected with God and to bring these things, to deal with what's going on in our hearts. I know I've been working through some anxiousness, some pretty hardcore anxiousness. So I'm praying for that. And so if you hear this on stream, pray for this anxiousness that's been going on. And like, feel free to call me out in our Discord. How's that going? How can you be praying more specifically? Because that shows community, that shows support, and that's what we're here for. Solomon threw down, if Jesus forgave those who nailed him to the cross, and if God forgives you and me, how can you withhold your forgiveness from someone else? And Graham lost, like, legit, the dude who took on the absolute suckageness of sin is able to forgive you for the suckageness of sin that he took on. Like, that thing wrecked him. He did that for you. And if he can do that for you, like, come on. Like, it's at least what we can do. Crazed Menace, pray for me to be able to speak Jesus into all situations of life and to remember what I learned from the Bible to share with others well. Absolutely. Heck yes. Thank you, Grace Menace. Yeah, that's what we are working on. That's really following Jesus 101, right? Processing the things that we learned, but then also like, how do I make this applicable? What am I actually doing with it? Like, how do I live that out? And sometimes this is where we find nerdy stuff to be able to kind of connect those ideas, to connect that dot a little bit more toward our innards and what needs to be worked on. So try and be a Kyoto. Remember, you've got a Komatetsu that is the Holy Spirit. He's there. He's fighting for you. He's inside you, working on it. Yeah. So yeah, we'll pray for that. Without further ado, I'm going to pray. God, I thank you for this time where we've been able to dissect and learn from The Boy and the Beast. Again, such a good anime, but again, like, animes are good, and whatever we nerd out is good. It's awesome that we can vibe in that, but it's what we can even learn from that and what we can grow in that. And God, I really think your voice speaks in different ways. Your truth is revealed in ways that can blow our brains. And I know that just keeps happening to me at different points with different things. So thank you for that. And God, help us as Crazed Menace brought up. Help us all to work on, when we are at that stage, to turn to you, to pray, to ask for your wisdom, because it says that you will give it gladly and in abundance and a huge amount. But to like actually take it in and to absorb it and to digest it. And then to use it in our life. And that means, how do we speak Jesus? How do we not even just speak Jesus? How do we live Jesus? How do we demonstrate that to those around us? That our feet will look like your feet. Our hands will look like your hands. And the demonstration of how you lived, how you love is huge on that. And that's part of like how do we respond in anger? How do we bring things to you? So help us in assessing that and working that through, working on the inner struggle that we can have before it becomes an outer struggle. And so help us in that and demonstrate that love to others and people around us. God, I just pray for some anxiety that's been going on in my head. I'm giving it to you, because I want to see where your leading is. I don't want where I'm just like worrying over details or things that just makes me feel like I have a giant elephant's foot on me, just holding me down. God, I want to look for your word. I want to look for your peace. I want to look for your rest. I need that, because it can't just all be me. And just help me to rest in you. Help me to trust in you. Look for your guidance to take this up and honestly go, God, where are you going with this? What are you wanting to have happen? Yeah, just be with us as we peace out from this week. Help us to learn and grow and develop and level up each day to look more like you. We ask this in your name. Amen. Again with the claps. What's with me clapping? I don't know why I do it. Anywho, nerds, awesomenesses. I hope you have an awesome day. This has been a longer stream. Keep on being wickedly, awesomely cool, invested. Know that we are here for you. Join the Discord. I've said this like crazy amounts of times, because it's our community. That's what we do. We're invested and stuff like that. But join the Discord. Get connected. Have some good nerdy conversations. Also know that if you've got any prayer requests, we do have that there too. And they are read. They are not just simply, seen in whatever. That we have reaction. That means we are praying through that. And so we got your back. Yeah. Be a Kyoto. Stay strong. Don't lose your anger. Don't lose your cool. Give it to God. Work it through with the peeps. And see how God moves in that. Cool? Take it easy, awesome sauces. Love ya.